Anna Kepner's stepbrother, he has been given a lot of freedom. I've discovered from these new 35 documents I downloaded. I told myself stay off of Pacer, but of course I'm back on Pacer because of the sad, tragic case of Anna Kepner, the 18-year-old who lost her life. According to police, they accuse her 16-year-old stepbrother, and since the court is considering him an adult, certain journalists are doing the same, so I will say his name. Timothy M. Hudson. You won't believe all this freedom he's been given. You know, I had to just get these court documents. I had to download all of them. I said, stay off of Pacer, Paula. Well, where do I find myself today? Monday, April 13th, right back on Pacer, downloading every single available unsealed document in this case. I'm sure you remember Anna Kepner. We went over this case in November 2025. She went on this cruise. It's just horrible to think about. And unfortunately, who accompanied her, her 16-year-old stepbrother, who she had been complaining about, apparently, and other siblings went along with them. Also, her stepmom, Chantel Hudson, so that's Timothy's bio mom. She'd been going through a thing with her ex-husband, Thomas Hudson. He's the father of Timothy. Timothy is now able to be charged as an adult, and Timothy is recently, as today, he's back in custody of his uncle. But just this past weekend, I was reading through these court documents. It lets me know that as early as just last week, Timothy was given so much freedom he was able to just hang out with his dad, help his dad with his landscaping business. That's quite a lot of freedom, in my opinion. Even though he's 16 years old, he's been charged with some pretty serious crimes. He's being charged with the essay of Anna. If you want to read the documents, you can. I downloaded so many. A lot of them are repetitive motions, say the same things about sealing, but some of them give us really good information about a horrible event, and they let us know why a grand jury decided, oh, well, this boy is 16, he needs to be charged as an adult. I'll put the links to all those documents below. For now, I will read the highlights to you of these documents, which is how I discovered what Timothy had been up to recently. No wonder the Daily Mail was able to capture those photos of Timothy. It looked like Timothy was perhaps doing some sort of landscaping stuff previously. Now I see why. All right, let's go through it briefly. We got this update from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of Florida. I've been soaking it all up, and I had to read through all these documents really quickly before I came on camera. I wanted to be prepared, and I was putting in public records request for what we could get. Now that we have more info, we have the indictment and everything. So basically today, Monday, April 13th, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of Florida let us know that a 16-year-old has been indicted as an adult by a federal grand jury on charges of murder and aggravated essay in the killing of his stepsister. So it talks about court records saying Timothy Hudson, 16, Titusville. He was traveling aboard this Carnival cruise, the Carnival Cruise Line's Horizon, with Anna Kepner and other family members, and this is when her murder happened. They don't have an exact time, apparently. They do have a statement from Timothy, though. We just see it referenced, we just see the title, but I want to get his actual statement. I know I remember Anna Kepner's grandma, Barbara Kepner, said Timothy kept saying stuff like, I just don't remember what happened, I don't remember. Well, it happened either November 6th or November 7th, 2025. When the ship was in international waters, it was en route to Miami, indeed. And they write about Timothy allegedly essaying his stepsister, as it were, and intentionally killing her. They're going to talk about premeditation in these documents too. The Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's Office later determined Anna's cause of death was mechanical asphyxiation. So I like what U.S. Attorney Jason Redding Quinones said. Our hearts go out to the victim's family during this unimaginable loss. A federal grand jury has returned an indictment charging serious offenses that allegedly occurred aboard a vessel in international waters. We will present the evidence in court and pursue this case with professionalism and care. As in every case, he continued, the defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I also remember reading in these documents that it will be a 7-day trial. I don't know if it'll actually go to trial. You know how these cases are. It speaks of Timothy initially being charged as a juvenile by information on February 2nd, and it remained sealed under Judge Beth Bloom until it was transferred for adult prosecution. So that's where it is now, with FBI Miami investigating the case. There were some Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office body cam videos mentioned, so of course I requested those. We don't know. Florida is a great sunshine state in terms of sunshine laws, great with public records. However, since this happened in international waters, the FBI is involved, also Florida agencies, so I don't know what will be released. But we have his 8-page indictment, superseding indictment, and they actually called it restricted unredacted indictment. It's just basically saying on or about November 6th, within the special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the U.S., upon the high seas and out of the jurisdiction of any particular state or district, with Miami-Dade County in the Southern District of Florida being the district in which the offender was arrested, then they go into what he did. Timothy, a minor, did knowingly, unlawfully attempt to perpetrate a murder. That is, this willful, deliberate, malicious, premeditated killing of Anna Kepner with malice aforethought. And unfortunately, the essay stuff too, the attempt of it or the perpetration of it, the actual doing of it, and they get a little more descriptive, but I'm not going to say those things. It's just horrible to me that Anna wasn't protected. According to Anna's ex-boyfriend, we've seen his interview. He spoke about being on FaceTime with Anna when she was back in Florida. Anna's ex-boyfriend said he even saw Timothy coming in the room, getting on top of Anna, and he screamed, like, "What are you doing?" And Timothy ran away. I believe Anna had given outcries. According to her ex-boyfriend or his family, allegedly Anna had potentially spoken out about what she was experiencing, but no one believed her. I don't know for sure who knew what, but I feel so bad for Anna. She was afraid. She said Timothy carried knives around. She was afraid of him. But when her stepmom, Chantel Hudson, when she was in court, she kind of said, she kind of alluded to after, the murder, after she waited a while till she was back on shore and texted her ex about what happened to Anna. In the wake of Anna's death, the stepmother has said things like, they wanted to be in the cabin together. Different statements have come out like, they got along. They were the three amigos. They were, 3 peas in a pod. I'm talking about Anna, Timothy, and the younger brother. I won't say his name. He's not charged with anything at all. To me, it's very sad that Anna was experiencing this, and of course she loved cruising. I'm sure she wanted to go on the cruise. I'm sure she was probably like, I won't make a big deal out of things. And then she couldn't even enjoy herself on a cruise. She was probably trying to fight off her stepbrother. Somewhere it says in here, it was unwanted. It wasn't like she wanted this. So count 1 is the murder in the first degree. The max term of imprisonment is life imprisonment. So they talk about fines and all that stuff. Different counts, they're talking about the attorneys. It's a felony. It says this case will take 7 days for the parties to try. So it's giving all the case numbers. It is not a potential death penalty case. It is not eligible for the death penalty as much as people might want it, or because of the heinous nature of the crime of what happened to Anna. But because he was so young when this crime occurred, he's not eligible for the death penalty. But he sure is getting his freedom now, I tell you that much. It's interesting how different cases go. So they're just going over all the counts, and I won't repeat things, but they get a little detailed in some sections. And again, for the other count, it says the case will take 7 days for the parties to try. I don't know if that's consecutive or not, if it really will go to trial, if it will be 1 week or 2 weeks, but they are felonies. I found this interesting when we get to these sealed, unopposed motions to modify conditions of release. Now we know from those previous text messages, like I've already gone over this case if you need to read more or watch more in the previous documents, or those long text messages we read through. Look at the podcast for this case. I've done quite a bit of research. Timothy's bio mom, Chantel, and her ex-husband, Thomas, they were going back and forth about, okay, what happened? Chantel finally told Thomas, something's wrong. I need you to call me ASAP. But she didn't do it right away. She kind of waited until after it docked in the port Miami, like Saturday the 8th. And you can see my previous video about all those text messages. And they were trying to figure out, okay, when can we see Timothy? Where's he going to be? And all that stuff. So it seems like it was taking so long. I mean, he's still not technically in custody like you would think. He's going from hanging out with his uncle to hanging out with his dad at the landscaping company, which I won't name either. I don't want people going crazy, on others. But it talks about Timothy making his initial appearance February 3rd, 2026. And then on February 6, 2026, the court held a detention hearing. And after hearing the testimony of FBI Special Agent Andrew Del Valle and the arguments of both parties, Magistrate Judge Torres entered a release order. Okay, so this is what that release order stated. Timothy had to be released into the home of his uncle, Devin. He was serving as a third-party custodian. Timothy has to reside in Devin's home under the supervision of an adult. It says Timothy can leave the home at Devin's discretion, and in his custody, Timothy can't be alone with anyone under the age of 18 unless he's supervised by Devin or another adult. And he is subject to GPS monitoring, so at least there's that. This is where I feel like Timothy got a little more freedom. Timothy was requesting a temporary modification of the release order to accommodate that his uncle Devin anticipated travel from April 8th through April 13th, 2026 to go to a church retreat with his son. I think that's cool. And that's today. It ends today. Devin gets back in town today. But during the days that Devin was planned to travel away, Timothy would still stay at Devin's home. He would temporarily be in the custody of Devin's wife, Sarah. But this is the caveat. It kind of tripped me out. Timothy was allowed to accompany his dad, Thomas Hudson, to work between the hours of about 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on April 8th, 9th, and 10th. So just think, just this past Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Timothy was able to just kind of roam free while still on GPS monitor, of course, helping his dad, where his dad works as a supervisor for a landscaping company. And he's not to have any contact with minors during that time. And then his dad would take him back to the home of Devin and Sarah in the evening. Now it says Timothy would remain at Devin and Sarah's home in Sarah's custody just all this weekend, April 11th, 12th, and 13th. Can you imagine Devin coming home today, April 13th? It's probably media everywhere out there looking for signs of Timothy. It's kind of like all bets are off in a way because he's being charged as an adult by the court, treated as an adult by the court. So that's it. And I can't help but think, of course, I love to garden and I have all those, fiskers, those cutty thingies. They can really cut stuff. Or, I have my saws and I have all these things. What do you call the thing? The tiller and all these tools to me, which can effectively turn into weapons. I mean, maybe Timothy is really regretful. Maybe this is just some grace he's being given for some reason before he probably will go in, if he's found guilty, and spend the rest of his life, long life. Imagine if he lives 70 more years. The rest of his long life in prison. So I guess he should soak up the time. But seems like he has a lot of freedom. A lot of people were angry when they heard about what happened with Anna, about the warnings, and now with Timothy being given all this kind of extra freedom. You don't always see that in a murder case, alleged murder. So Devin comes back today, and he'll have his full custody of Timothy. How long will it take this kid to get to trial? Will it take until he's 18 and he goes on trial? So it's talking about all these unsealed records by the clerk of court. They're talking about a transcript of his February 6, 2026 detention hearing. So there are all these things that I've put in requests for. And of course, discovery, it sounds interesting. It speaks about March 20th, 2026. The United States provided the defense with these hand-delivered files on one flash drive. FBI Sentinel entries, there's 2 videos from the FBI, additional Carnival Cruise documents. I think that'll be interesting because it seems like because this tragedy took place on a very popular cruise line, their ship, Generally, they try and keep those type of tragedies low. They don't want people associating their cruise line with anything dangerous. MDSO offense incident reports, I've requested that. Autopsy photographs and x-rays, I don't need those, of course. Like in Gannon's case, like in Gannon Stouck's case, how they may have accidentally released them to us, or maybe Florida just releases everything to us, and of course I never published those, but I don't know, there's stuff we don't need to see. The full medical examiner's reports, timelines by Special Agent Pitts. There's an extraction of CK's cell phone. I was like, wait, who's CK? At first I was like, who's CK? And then I remember Christopher Kepner, Anna Kepner's biological father. There's an extraction of his cell phone, and I'm wondering why. Was Anna texting her dad about, I don't feel well, my braces hurt, I'm leaving dinner, or, was there communication between Timothy and Chris Kepner? I don't know, I wonder. There are 4 MDSO body cams I've requested, and the Excel spreadsheet table of contents for those body cam videos and the players and all that. So we don't know. We don't know what's exactly unsealed or sealed. It's a special situation. I mean, Timothy's a minor, but he's being treated as an adult. There's also more discovery. It says April 7th, 2026, the defense got the following: MDSO business record certification for the CAD report, so the CAD reports we want to see, and the MDSO assessment report. But I really want to read the transcript. I want to know what Timothy said when he first was interviewed, when they were first able to get on the ship, and what condition was he in. They'll probably still blur it. I'm assuming the body cam video of Timothy. Will they let us hear how upset did he sound? Did he really sound like he didn't remember what he did? It's just so icky. So there's a whole bunch on this docket. I was like, oh, thank you, God, I found all the data. It's just sad. Jeremiah 17:14. Heal me, Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved. For you are the one I praise. It's just really, people can have sympathy for bonus parents, of course, but Chantel Hudson, she didn't come off as very likable. I'm not sure what her relationship with Anna was like. And of course, people have a measure of sympathy, too, for Chris Kepner. No one wants to lose a child. Some people are looking side-eyed at Chris Kepner because he met Chantel. I'm not sure how well he knew her. And he moved her and her children into his home, almost like displacing Anna. Granted, she was 18 and on her way out. No wonder she wanted to go off to the military, come back, serve the country, serve in law enforcement. We could see in her TikTok videos, she didn't even have a bedroom, basically. She was kind of relegated to the living room. And that's never a good sign when you see something like that happening. And then with this stepmom moving her children into the home, it doesn't feel like Anna was protected and she wasn't a priority. Now, of course, I'm not saying any of the parents or anyone else wanted this to happen. You can have sympathy for Chris and Chantel in terms of, okay, here's Timothy. How troubled is he? What has he done in the past? But you can't elevate his care or his consideration over the victim here, Anna. She was the true victim. I can understand why Timothy's parents would want to spend time with him and, of course, be bereaved at his loss of freedom too, ultimately, if he ever truly really loses his freedom completely. But the anger and outrage of this case is that Anna should have been protected. That was her home with her dad and siblings, and even if it's nothing wrong with, of course, meeting someone new, getting married, blending a family, but when you do that, you try with your utmost, as much as you can, to protect everyone. And if there's even a hint of, wait a minute, Timothy might be harming Anna or trying to harm Anna, or Anna is afraid in the slightest of Timothy, let me work something out here instead of going on a cruise and then putting them in the same room. I don't know what Timothy was thinking. According to Chantel, there was no alcohol involved. There's been rumors back and forth. Was there alcohol involved? What happened? It's just sad to me. Anna's the victim. She should have been able to go on that cruise, have a great time, and go off and just live her life instead of being confronted by, a stepbrother who's trying to do things to her that he shouldn't. And his mind? What was his mind? What happened? You know, in that room, I keep thinking of him attempting to, and allegedly she was found with no clothes on. We don't have a ton of details there, but what he was able to do, and then did she scream or cry and say, I'm going to tell on you, or, you know, I'm thinking in my mind, and then did he try and silence her and then ultimately believe he silenced her for good? Well, no. You know, the blood cries out. God knows all truth. It's just very sad to me. You know, I'm sure it'll be triggering for people, so we can all just take a breath and pray. And I'm grateful that he's being charged as an adult. I'm glad he's been arrested. There was a not guilty plea entered. If this thing goes all the way to trial, you know, I hope it's not blaming the victim or things turning on Anna or, you know, coddling Timothy. I just want him to honestly get help while if he's convicted, in prison. I don't want him to be able to beat this charge or beat these charges if he truly perpetrated this crime. I want him to look at himself and say, okay, what really made me do this? And, you know, Lord, help me never do this again. Not fall on the, I don't remember anything, if that's true. It's just truly sad, but we will see what happens next now that we have a case, now that we have a docket, now that I can go on Pacer, I can, you know, set up updates. I can be alerted for updates, so I like that. So now we literally have a case out there. We have him out there being charged as an adult. Let's see where this goes. If he is convicted, I really want him to do self-examination. I mean, like the Bible says, there's no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. That doesn't mean he, of course, won't get convicted. But I want him to be able to admit the truth. And then sometimes it's a matter of, okay, if he gets a life sentence, being the best model prisoner he can be the rest of his life. Inside, you know, as of now, he just has tons of freedom. And I compare it to other crime cases and I'm like, well, other 16-year-old boys don't get this much freedom after doing what he's charged with doing. They call it a serious crime in the court documents. I'll stop here. Check all the links below. Of course, I'll continue following this case for the updates now that we literally have a case we can view, and many other cases, so many other cases. I put in so many requests. Sometimes there might be a lull, you know, a long wait, and then we get a lot of evidence. Thank you so much for watching all of this. Take care.